This morning on BRN, part 2 of our conversation about redefining service reliability and employee engagement in contact centers. And we're going to welcome back to the program Adrienne Ryan Pinto. She's a managing director with Enterprise Iron. Adrienne, welcome back to the program. Great to see you again this morning.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a thoughtful conversation about contact centers and their evolution. You've been knee deep, maybe neck deep at this point into doing that. What are some of the innovative strategies that you're seeing clients deploy in terms of engaging and reducing turnover? So we talked yesterday about employees, and that's still the biggest risk, the biggest hurdle. What are some innovative strategies to overcome that?
And actually, we do have a partner that we're working with that we're struggling with their turnover, and they decided they had to do something about it. So I'm going to share some of their best practices because it resulted in a 50% decrease in their turnover rate annually. And what they really had to do was create an entire department that focused on the engagement of the employees. And so that is what they put somebody in charge and said, this is what we need to do to make sure that the employees are feeling that they're part of something bigger, and making sure that we're not burning them out and creating an environment that they just cannot feel comfortable in. So what we did, or what they did, was create this group, and the group then focused on making sure that the communication was clear for all the reps, that they had surveys and anonymous surveys that folks could give some feedback to make sure their voices were heard, because that's a big part of feeling like you're part of something bigger. They had rewards and recognition programs, so when reps are doing a good job, they get a punch thing, and so they can actually use their points to buy things on Amazon. And so that, those are very real things they could use for anything that they wanted to buy for themselves. Making sure that they were recognizing people's birthdays and work anniversaries, because that's also, again, feeling like you're part of a team. One of the things they did that I love, and I've been down there a number of times, is they built a meditation room. So when the reps were taking breaks, because you have to build in the breaks in the schedule, a nice, beautiful, quiet room that they could go into and just have some peace before they decided to come back out and pick up the phones again. And it really, really made a difference. The other big component, which again is nothing new, is helping to improve a career path. That's something that the reps needed to know, that they do a good job. There is going to be opportunities for advancement and maybe working on different customer accounts. And so that also was a big component, and it really did make a huge difference for them. And the staff is happier. I mean, happier staff certainly turns into higher quality calls, because they're not feeling like this is something that they're getting beaten over the head with.
Yeah, I like that meditation room idea. I wonder if they're going to add I would have liked to have that, because that calm, that quietness actually helps you center a little bit. But maybe they'll think about adding a yoga studio, and they can do some yoga in between during the breaks.
And some clients do actually have, organizations now have fitness rooms and that type of thing. I think getting a chance for folks to kind of step away is an important thing.
Yeah, it helps you be limber when you're on the phone, because I remember taking the phone call, standing up, have a kind of sway a little bit. I'm driving our producers nuts here. How do you balance cost and customer experience? You talk about this in segment 1. There's a cost to hiring people, whether they're offshore, onshore. You have to have there's a cost benefit analysis. So how do you balance that?
Well, I mean, to me, the key is to create the efficiency you want. And I know you say balance. I'm going to say that it has to do with making sure you're appropriately staffed. And now we have all these tools for workforce management. As I said, calls are coming in cyclically. It depends on the actual business that you're looking at. But if you know what your call patterns are, and you then use that to appropriately staff, that is the sweet spot of being an efficient contact center, because you don't want the reps to be too idle. I mean, an overstaffed contact center also creates a bunch of problems for the management, because they get distracted, and then maybe they're not doing what they need to do when there may be a peak. And so you want to find it where they're busy enough that the day is going by and they're engaged, and they're not so busy that they can't get ahead of it, and the calls are coming back to back to back. They can handle that 1 or 2 days if you've got some peak periods, but you can't have a contact center that is constantly in that state because you will burn out folks for sure. So it's trying to find that sweet spot, figuring out, are there lower level calls? We sometimes call those tier 1 calls that they really, sometimes they could be self-service, but for the folks that don't want to do self-service, they want to call in to get their account balance and that type of thing. Could you figure out hybrid ways to get different folks doing that? That drives down costs. And then if things are more complicated, you just transfer the call to a higher level agent that is skilled with being able to handle some more complex things. So it's a tough balance. I think it's one of the things that folks are constantly, that's the challenge of running a contact center, but it really is that sweet spot of making sure you don't have too much volume coming in that they are feeling too burnt out.
Yeah, and that's where that reporting comes in that you talked about, I think, in yesterday's show. Let's talk about cloud-based technologies, because the world of technology has changed. We've talked to your peers at Enterprise Iron about that. It's a totally different world than when we grew up with mainframes. I mean, they still exist, but there's things in layers on top of that. So where does the cloud come in terms of reliability and also that security you talked about?
Well, I mean, it is the new way. I mean, no one is using the hardware any longer. And so it has changed the game for sure, because one of the things about going to the cloud for a contact center is that you have higher availability. Your uptimes are, you're not going to have the hardware crash on you. So that's a really important component of it. And scalability, to me, is what your ability in a cloud environment to go from, say, 5 reps to 15 reps in a short period of time. Those are things that you could do real time that you weren't able to do in the past. And so it has certainly given a contact center management the opportunity to respond much more quickly to changes. And again, it is a very agile environment out there because things are changing constantly. But it helps with data security. And so it really has changed the environment. And that's why you do need your IT support. Like, it's important to make sure that that you have that support with the cloud technology. But another big part of that too is the ability, and this is what we saw in COVID, with cloud technology, we were able to push out folks to get to be remote workforces that we wouldn't be able to do as easily in the past. And so it really has helped, just again, the flexibility in general of running a contact center and being able to scale up, scale down, push if something is happening from a disaster recovery perspective, remote workers. And so it really has changed the game.
Last question, Adrienne. Let's talk about generative AI, because we talked about it with your peers on the network in terms of what does it mean to the retirement industry, the financial services, to other industries. What is its role in the contact center framework? Does it have a role? It's, AI is always in the news. So is that a replacement for the human, or is it additive to the human contact center representative?
Well, I'll always say it's additive, because I do think you'll always need the human touch, particularly in complex and escalated situations. If someone's upset and stuff, you might not be able to get that through AI. But I would say contact centers probably adopted this technology early on. I mean, the chatbots that were introduced years ago, the ability that you could ask a simple question, even if it just popped up, frequently asked questions, and you could find what you were looking for independently. That certainly was the beginning of that type of work. But now it is making a big difference, particularly in chatbots and IVRs too, that you can now, like, the person can talk and say what their question is, and generative AI can answer questions based on what the caller is coming in with. So you've got a lot of that, the things that you needed to talk to a human before, you now perhaps don't need to. But I do, again, always feel that there's going to be a need to have the human touch with certain types of inquiries that come in. But another huge component is the knowledge management, that the AI really makes a difference with training and tools as a rep. Like, think back when we were reps, like, there's so much information you're trying to keep track of. We had our manuals and all that. AI now is, if they have a question, they can type in the question and the answer will come up for them while they're on the phone. That's huge. That's like having a real person sitting with you, helping you remember what you need to say. And so I think that's a big part of how contact centers, and certainly our clients and our partners, are working to use that. It's really about making sure you're training folks. And it goes back to what I've shared all along, because I'm a big believer of the quality. It's really important to answer your phones quickly and have low abandonment rates and, speed of answer. But if you are not answering the calls accurately, and especially with social media and that type of thing where stuff will get everywhere, it's very important that your quality is there. And I think that AI is a big part of being a support for training and for ongoing when folks are on the phone, making sure that they can double check something if they need it.
Yeah, well, certainly additive, and they look. I mean, this has been a great conversation, Adrienne. It's an evolving world. It sounds like a lot more fun and challenging than when you and I did it. But it also sounds it's
at least at the end of the day, I
world.
always felt like I think I helped some people today. That's not a bad thing.
That is a very good thing, and I think people who are watching that are calling the customer service contact centers, excuse me. They want to know they can get the answer. They want to get the right answer on the first time. Right. Adrienne, we're going to have to leave it there. Great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Again, thanks for having me.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details at our website. And we're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe. Keep on saving. And don't forget, roll with the changes.